The moment I saw my father's hand twitching toward the envelope on the table, my chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. This was supposed to be my engagement dinner, a celebration of new beginnings. Instead, it felt like a battle zone, and my family was about to launch the first strike. My heart raced with betrayal and humiliation. But I wasn't about to let them steal what was rightfully mine. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. They thought I was naive. Just the obedient daughter who wouldn't question their control over my $52,000 trust fund. But I had spent years quietly fighting their financial manipulation, their twisted justifications for draining Savannah's fund while pretending to protect mine. As my mother's eyes flicked nervously between me and the envelope, the room grew unbearably silent. Every guest at the table sensed the tension, family secrets hanging. Like a storm cloud, I held my ground as they pushed their version of family loyalty, claiming Savannah's reckless spending was my fault for demanding fairness. Their voices grew louder, more desperate, trying to shame me into submission. But I had prepared for this moment in ways they never expected. My lawyer Alexis had uncovered everything: fake receipts, forged signatures, phone calls where vendors were pressured to keep quiet, and that night, I realized this was bigger than just money. It was about power, control, and finally reclaiming my voice, before the chaos could spiral further. I pulled out the first set of documents from my purse, the undeniable proof of my responsible management and their betrayal. The room shifted. Faces fell. My parents looked caught, while Savannah glared like I'd just declared war. It was the first time I saw the true weight of my silent success, but as the evening spiraled into confrontations and whispered threats, I knew the fight had only just begun. The trust fund was just the surface. What lay beneath was a family fractured by greed and secrets, and I was ready to take them to court. They say the biggest battles happen behind closed doors. But that night, everything was out in the open, my family's ugly truths laid bare on the polished dining table. After I presented the documents, my mother's face went pale, and my father's usual calm cracked for the first time in years. Savannah stormed out, her voice cutting through the stunned silence like a knife, accusing me of ruining the family. But no one could deny the mountain of evidence Alexis had prepared: text messages where my parents boasted about siphoning funds, forged signatures, and secret accounts opened in my name. The guests shifted uncomfortably, whispers spreading like wildfire. What was supposed to be a joyful engagement dinner had morphed into a courtroom drama, and I was both defendant and prosecutor. My fiancé Carter stood by my side, his steady presence a stark contrast to the chaos. When my mother finally blurted out, "You're ungrateful and selfish," I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "No. I'm fighting for my future, the one you tried to steal." Later, Alexis and I met with the court clerk to file the official complaint. I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. The law was finally on my side. But this would mean exposing my family to public scrutiny, and possibly destroying what little trust remained. Then came the calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Some offered cautious support. Others warned me to back down before the family name was ruined for good. But I knew deep down this was about more than just money. It was about reclaiming my life and setting boundaries where none had existed before. On the day the judge ruled in my favor, ordering my parents to cover legal fees and forbidding any interference with my finances, a wave of vindication washed over me. But the victory was bittersweet. My parents were distant, and Savannah refused to speak. Months later, as I planned my wedding with Carter, my parents showed up unannounced, asking for help with Savannah's mounting debts. I calmly laid out the truth: how they had sabotaged my engagement night and almost cost me everything. Their silence was deafening that night. As Carter and I celebrated quietly with close friends, I realized something powerful. I had not only won my trust fund, I had finally taken control of my story. But just as I began to breathe, my phone buzzed with a message that shook me to my core. The message was from Savannah. Just 2 words: "We need to talk." My heart raced. After months of cold silence, after the court battle, after the family fractures too deep to ignore, this felt like a crack in the wall. But was it genuine? Or another trap? Carter urged caution, but I knew I had to face it. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe, far from prying eyes and family drama. When Savannah arrived, her eyes were red-rimmed, and her voice cracked with emotion. She confessed everything: how she felt trapped under my parents' control, how they manipulated her trust fund and pressured her into schemes against me. Her bitterness turned to regret, and for the first time, she admitted she had been used as a pawn in a game neither of us asked to play. We spoke for hours, unraveling years of deception, betrayal, and pain. It wasn't forgiveness, at least, not yet, but it was a start. A fragile bridge over a chasm carved by greed and mistrust. Back home, Carter and I finalized our wedding plans, insisting on a celebration defined by love and chosen family, not blood ties. The guest list was small, made up of those who truly supported us: friends, mentors, Even a few distant relatives who had quietly cheered me on after the ceremony. I launched a support group for others dealing with family financial abuse, turning my story into a beacon for those lost in similar battles. It felt like reclaiming power not just for myself, but for anyone silenced or underestimated. One evening, as I sat in my sunlit living room, Carter beside me, I looked out at the skyline, feeling the weight of what I had overcome and the freedom I had claimed. My phone buzzed again, this time, it was my mother, asking to meet. I stared at the screen, feeling the old pull of family ties, but also the steel of boundaries I'd spent years building. I typed one word back, no, because sometimes, winning isn't about forgiveness. It's about standing firm, rewriting the rules, and owning your worth on your own terms.